Hello, hi. My name is Dr. James McCormack. I'm the head of the School of English at IHM, and I'd like to talk to you about writing research essays. I'm going to talk about generally writing research essays and also about the specific research essay application essay that you will be doing. So the first thing that I'll talk about the structure of my talk here. First thing I'm going to talk about is why do we want you to write an essay? And that'll be a sort of generally, start with general essay writing and then go to looking more specifically. And then we'll talk about what to do and what not to do when writing an essay. So a few rules mind that will help you succeed in your application essay. Now, I want to start by making a comparison, a kind of metaphor for the essay writing process. The essay writing process obviously is testing your knowledge of information. Now, I want you to think about how you might explain different things, how you might answer questions if someone asks you how to explain something. So I've given an example here. I said, if I asked you, how do I take a patient's temperature? You could answer that in a number of ways. You can also think about this. It doesn't have to be a patient's temperature. It could be how to take blood pressure. It could be how to bake a cake. How to play cricket, whatever. If I asked you this question, you could answer this in a number of different ways, and we'll go through this. So the first thing you could say is you could simply say, Google it. Of course, that's not a really very good answer. You're not really answering it at all. The second way you could answer, how do you take a patient's temperature, is you could provide an answer that you've memorized, for example, from a nursing textbook, or from thermometer instructions or whatever. That would be probably a good enough in most situations as an answer. Now, another way you could do this is you could provide an answer in your own words. You could paraphrase the textbook answer. In other words, give the same meaning, the same steps, but put them in your own words rather than memorizing them. And that would be better because you put them in your own words, shows a greater knowledge or a greater understanding. But the best ways you could probably do this is to provide an answer that is, again, is in your own words, but shows that you've thought about different aspects of the topic. For example, different ways of taking a temperature, oral, rectal, or axillary temperatures. Maybe you've read different pieces of writing on the topic, thought about different ages of patients. If you did all those sort of aspects, again, in your own words, researching different aspects of a problem from different sources, that would be the best answer to this kind of question. And you could see from that comparison, that's why universities and other places of higher education like essays, research essays in particular, as an assessment type. They test a different and deeper knowledge than a memorized test. So a good research essay shows that a student can think about a complex topic from many different angles. Remember, that's the last sort of dot point I made on the last slide, is that you can show that you've thought about this problem or this process from different situations. And it shows that you can research expert opinion on a complex topic. It shows that you know how to look for the answers. And it shows once you've found that expert opinion that you can understand that there are different views on a complex topic. That you can use this research, this relevant research, to form your own opinion, your own viewpoint on a topic. This expert says this, this expert says something slightly different. My view is that each of them is correct in a way, but each of them leaves out something. So it shows that you can use this research to form your own opinion that is an educated opinion or an educated viewpoint, but is well informed by your research. And if you can show that, then it shows that you have demonstrated an in-depth understanding of a topic. Again, probably a deeper understanding than a memorization test would show. And finally, it shows that you can communicate all of this, everything you've learned, in a structured and easy to understand piece of writing. So you understand that process, you understand that question or that problem in a study area, and that you can communicate it in an easy to understand way. Now, those are all general principles. Let's talk about our specific situation here. Why do we, in other words, IHM, want you to write a brief research essay? So a good or good enough research essay shows that you'll be able to do the following things. That you can follow instructions and pay attention to details. So you can take on board the instructions that are on the assessment documents and that are in any other sorts of instructions, such as this presentation. A good enough research essay shows that you can understand university level writing in English, that you have advanced reading skills in English, that you can understand beyond what a high school student in English would understand. It shows that you will be able to learn advanced research skills, including the importance of citation and referencing. In other words, demonstrating where you have picked up your research material and how it has informed your argument. And finally, it shows that you can communicate all of this in a structured and easy to understand piece of writing. In short, that you have good enough writing skills in English that you'll be able to succeed at a post-secondary level. Now, if we think about a structure of an essay in outline form, many essays will vary a little bit, but most of them will have this sort of structure. And I think this is a structure that could work very well in your application essay. If you've never written an essay before, most of them will take some sort of structure such as this. If they're very long essays, of course, then it's this very similar to this structure, but stretched out quite a bit to beyond sort of 5 paragraphs, which is what I have here. But this is the basic 5-paragraph structure that's probably the most common essay structure in English writing. Okay, the first paragraph is an introduction paragraph. Basically, it previews the topic, says why the topic is important, and it states what the writer's viewpoint is. All right. So the introduction is usually at least 2 sentences long, probably more like 3 or longer, and it has a bit of background where it is basically saying this is a topic that is discussed a lot in this particular field, or in contemporary society or contemporary nursing practice or whatever. And the thesis statement is your own view on this, whether you agree or disagree with this. I'll give some examples later. The second and largest part of the essay is called the body of the essay. And here is where it discusses a topic and defends the viewpoint. of the viewpoint that is expressed in the thesis statement. So the body is, in a short essay, about 2 to 3 paragraphs long. In your application essays, you're probably looking at 4 to 5 paragraphs in total. An introduction, a conclusion, and a body. Now, I'll come to this again later, but you don't need to label these parts. Don't label your introduction, and your body. Now, the body discusses the main ideas around the topic. It discusses the topic in a way that defends the viewpoint of the writer. Again, I'll give some more specific examples in a minute. So in a short essay, you would have a paragraph. Paragraph would probably be run about 4 or 5 sentences long, each paragraph. And the first sentence of the paragraph shows the reason why your thesis statement is true. For example, if you argue that social media does more harm than good in contemporary society, your first paragraph starts with the first reason why you believe this is true. And then it explains what you mean by this, right? Citing research that helps prove your point. Your second paragraph continues with the second reason why you believe that your thesis statement is true. The second reason why, for example, you believe social media does more harm than good in contemporary society, and explains it, and so on with the third paragraph. And then the conclusion reviews the discussion, summarizes what has been said, your viewpoint, and your reasons for holding those views. Now, let me give you an example that gives some specific details here. I've written a plan here, a plan or an outline of an essay. This would be a good outline for a 500, 750 word essay on a topic. Usually what we're looking for in this type of essay is some sort of controversial topic, a topic where many people will have different and opposing views. Right? In many subjects, this could be specific to your subject, specific to different ideas about nursing practice in different fields, for example, different ideas about clinical treatments in psychology or something if you were studying psychology. In some essays, such as what we have in this application essay, or in many standardized test essays, it's an essay on a social or cultural topic that people have different opinions about. Now, if we have as an essay topic, I've chosen one here that is not listed as an option, but I think gives an idea of how you might pursue an essay on smoking or social media or sugar taxes or any of the other controversial topics that are listed as possible essay topics. So an outline of an essay on compulsory military service. Now, compulsory military service, other words for this include the words draft or conscription. Basically, if you're looking at compulsory military service, that means what we're talking about here is some countries, such as Australia or India, if you serve in the military, in the Army or the Air Force or whatever, right, it's a voluntary choice, right? It's a job and you get paid for it. This includes probably most countries in the world, America, Australia, India, but many countries have compulsory military service, maybe from the ages of 21 to 24, 18 to 21, somewhere like that, where people have to serve in the Army. And obviously this can be controversial in these countries. People can have different views. And of course, people outside of those countries would have different views. I mean, if you ask someone in Australia, would you like to serve in the military for a year? Do you think it should be compulsory? They probably would have a strong opinion about that. Okay, so how do we approach this topic? We approach it by thinking about what this means, compulsory military service. Right? So compulsory military service, we can think about examples of countries that have compulsory military service. South Korea is one. Israel is another one. There are a couple of European countries. I think Brazil has compulsory military service as well. And I've already given examples of ones that don't have it. So we can think broadly about the topic. We can think of specific examples. Just make sure we can understand it. We can think of, often good to think of keywords. Now, I've mentioned compulsory military service. What are some synonyms, some words that mean the same thing? You may have heard the word the draft, the word conscription. These are all synonyms. If you're going to use research, if you're going to do research on the topic, you could Google compulsory military service. You could also Google draft, conscription, and so forth. Okay, so we can start the introduction with some background. Right? The background basically start with some countries have compulsory military service, some don't. It's a controversial topic, meaning a topic where people have strongly felt opposing views, especially among young people in countries with compulsory service. And then I've given my thesis statement. Now this is just an outline form. I won't present the essay itself, but I'll just presenting an outline form of how I will write it, okay? In my thesis statement, I have said that I disagree with compulsory military service. And so I've given as my thesis statement, for practical, economic, and ethical reasons, military service should not be compulsory. Now, one thing you can see here, something interesting that you can do with the thesis statement and is sometimes helpful, is you can see how I've started to outline my reasons right here. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so for practical, economic, and ethical reasons, military service should not be compulsory. So I've disagreed with the idea that military service should be compulsory. Now I'm going to go through and give my reasons. Okay, and my first paragraph of the body of my essay, this first paragraph will talk about the practical reasons. And I'll say, contemporary soldiers require special skills, which are unlikely to be found through conscription. Okay, so here I can talk about, in this paragraph, I can talk about how contemporary militaries are very high tech and specialized. They're not like not like soldiers of 100 years ago, where you just treat someone show someone how to fire a gun, right? It's a little bit more complicated than that. And probably you won't find those people just by randomly choosing them through the population. You probably want people who are professionally inclined that way, professionally suited to that. Paragraph 2, body paragraph 2, I say that conscription, compulsory military service, would be more expensive than a professional army because it's more expensive to train ordinary people to become soldiers. And also you have to test for medical exemptions. So for example, if you are conscripting, if you are drafting people and you someone says, no, I can't serve because I have a bad foot condition, it means I can't stand for a long time, then you need to hire a doctor to make sure that they're telling the truth, right? If it was voluntary, they just wouldn't volunteer if it was non-compulsory. So these are the economic reasons. Finally, the third paragraph of the body, I could say just for ethical reasons. I could start by saying that except for emergency situations, people should be free to leave however they choose, work whatever job they choose, and not be forced to join the military, that it's a matter of ethical principle, that people should live however they want, except for in case of emergencies. And so conscription is not a good idea. And then finally, in my conclusion, I would review this position. I would quickly summarize all of these reasons I've given. All right. Now, this next part, I'm going to talk about some of the problems to avoid in application essays. Some things that we've seen that are big problems and that indicate problems with following instructions, problems that indicate perhaps you're not ready for studying at this level. We realize for some people, this may be one of the first essays they've written. We're not looking for a sort of masterpiece, but we're looking for people who can follow instructions and express themselves clearly enough and show that they understand written English, they can read English at a high enough level and so forth, and that they can try very hard working at this. I mean, I think that another thing to think about, or a general principle to think about, is don't rush this. Use all the time that you are given to write this essay and to proofread it. Okay, but some hazards to avoid in your essay. I've put little deadly skull and crossbone here because there's sort of big problems here. In terms of structure, an essay should not use bullet points or section headings. I've given an example here of someone has summary points of their essay. You can use bullet points or dot points in some forms of writing, like business reports and such. It's not done in essays. An essay should read like a sort of continuous piece of writing, not like a list. Okay, so it should read like a continuous piece of writing, like you would see in a book, not like a list. So don't use bullet points. It's a major problem with structure. Okay. Now, the second biggest problem is problems in expression. Of course, we want to see that you understand written English and that you can write English at a fairly high level. This does not mean perfect English. We're not expecting perfect English, but we're expecting that you avoid simple errors. So this would mean problems in capitalization. Right? Every sentence starts with a capital letter. Right? Proper nouns such as New York or Sydney, Melbourne, India, these all start with capital letters. Avoid those sort of simple errors. These can often be caught using the spell checker in Microsoft Word or Grammarly or one of those sorts of programs. Avoid those sort of simple errors. Also avoid word salads. We're not, again, I think a lot of students worry that their English is not good enough because they want to present perfect English. And so they do something that's probably making their English worse, right? When I say word salads, this is a way of saying that your words are just sort of combined together and sort of, a salad where you throw lettuce and tomato and everything and kind of mix it all together, and it has no structure. It's just ingredients mixed together. Of course, language, we want structure. Don't use apps or websites to paraphrase or find awkward synonyms. Use plain English. For example, if you want to say, I told her that she was beautiful and that I loved her, say, I told her that she was beautiful and I loved her and that I loved her. Don't write, I told her that she was pulchritudinous and that I had feelings of endearment towards her. Okay. Sometimes students can sort of go to too much effort to use obscure English because they make it sound, they want to improve the way it sounds. And so instead of saying something like, I firmly believe, they say something like, I sturdily believe. Okay, because they firm and sturdy, they think are the same thing, but you don't say I sturdily believe in English. It's not a way that we put words together. Okay, so use plain English. Don't use obscure synonyms to try to make yourself sound more impressive. Usually it has the effect of actually making your essay harder to understand. And probably the biggest, try to avoid those sort of simple errors in capitalization, punctuation, and so forth. If we see those repeated, then it does seem to show someone who is really having trouble using English at a high enough level. This is number 3 on my list, but I mean, probably should be first, actually. It's not in order of importance. But avoid all forms of academic dishonesty. Avoid even the appearance of academic dishonesty. What does this mean? This means don't let someone else write your essay for you. Don't copy and paste an essay from the web. Don't copy, paste, and paraphrase an essay. That will usually give you a word salad, a meaningless collection of writing. Don't use essay writing websites at all. Don't even use them as research sources. So don't paraphrase essays that you've got from other places. Write your own essay. Start with that structure that I've sort of given you and work through it. Try not to take shortcuts. You have plenty of time to do this. And it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. That's what you go back and you check to see if things are making sense. Right? And if you've capitalized every sentence and you've done everything correctly. All right. But in all cases, avoid all forms of academic dishonesty, because that is a sort of red flag that shows a problem or an inability to work at a high enough level. Research and citation problems. Now, I said don't cite essays from essay writing websites. I've had that before in application essays. A student has not paid for an essay, but they've used as a research source, they've used one of those essays that are given as a sort of model, a sample on an academic essay writing website. Don't use those, because it's important that you avoid all, even the appearance of cheating. Right? So you must be honest enough that you don't even look dishonest. And you must use research, and it must be from respectable sources, academic writing and journalism. Okay. My recommendation would be to go to Google and use Google Scholar. If you go to Google, you'll see a list of Google tools. If you scroll down, you'll get to Google Scholar, and those link searches to academic journals. Then you must show in a specific way how you used research sources. So you can't just write a whole essay and then say, at the end of it, say, I used this book by Jones about smoking, and this book by Smith about smoking, and this book by Patel about smoking. Right? You must show in the essay where you use that material. For example, APA guidelines. And finally, there are many tools that will help you reference correctly. So if you go to, for example, the website Cite This For Me, it will tell you how to cite these essays. So again, I want to emphasize that we're not looking for perfect essays. If you haven't done a lot of essay writing or any essay writing, don't worry, but follow these steps, avoid the major problems, take some time to write it and review it, and then you'll be on your way to a successful application essay, a successful academic future, and a successful career. So best of luck with your essay and with your future. Thank you.